And the account manager's role is to grow the account. That is the primary role of an account manager. The primary role for the project manager is to protect the work-life balance of the team and to protect profitability. And sometimes account managers are so driven to win, to grow the account, that they care more about the top line than the bottom line. They have not built this healthy tension in the firm between the account manager and the project manager. They have to be afraid of the project managers. And if that role is concentrated in one person, there's nobody to be afraid of. If you're worried that this soulless, humorless AI tool is going to take your job, well, you're not very good at your job. I understand the panic, and I don't think any of us really knows what's going to happen, but to me, this is just like it's like the merry-go-round spinning up, and the weakest kids are going to get thrown off. Just don't be one of the weakest kids.
Welcome to episode 138. If you've ever wondered what truly sets great account managers apart, not just from order takers, but from project managers too, then this episode is for you. I'm going to introduce David in a moment. Many of you will be familiar with David C. Baker, but for this episode, here's what you can expect and here's what we covered. We focused really on the real value of account management, what it is, what it's not, and how to make a bigger impact in your role. So just a handful of things that we covered. We talked about why growing the account is your primary responsibility and how to do it without being salesy. The healthy tension between account managers and project managers and why combining the two roles can quietly undermine the agency. And we'll explain why. What makes a great account manager, from reading the room to leading conversations that move the client relationship forward, how to handle sales handovers, protect your workload, and set yourself up to succeed, and why you should be driving the AI conversation, not waiting for someone else to do it. We also touched on team structure, incentives, leadership, and where the role of the account manager is headed in an AI-enabled future. So if you want to stay indispensable to your agency and your clients, this is one to bookmark and come back to. So let's go over to the introduction to David now. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by David C. Baker, who is widely regarded as the expert's expert in the marketing agency world. David has advised over 1,000 entrepreneurial experts through his consulting firm, Punctuation, which he founded back in 1994. He's the author of 7 books, including the influential The Business of Expertise and Secret Tradecraft of Elite Advisors, and his latest book, Selling Your Professional Services Firm. David's insights have been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and numerous other publications. As the co-host of the popular Two Bobs podcast, David regularly shares his expertise on agency management. Now, one of the reasons I've invited David on today is that he has decades of experience working with marketing services firms and brings unparalleled insights into the nuanced relationship between account management and project management, which makes him the perfect guest because we are preparing also for September's annual account and project management event that's happening in September in Atlanta. So I look forward to talking to him more about that. David, thank you for coming.
Glad to do this. I would have come to London just to do this. I was here anyway, but yeah. Great to be here.
No, I really, really appreciate you coming. Obviously, we've worked together for the last few years.
Yeah.
And so I've had the opportunity to see you in your home turf, and now you're in mine.
Yeah, it's great. And I love London, too. It's just, I think I've been here 30 times, and I never get tired of it. It's just great.
There's always something to do, isn't there? So to see.
Yeah.
David, I want to start off by talking about your latest book, okay? Selling Your Professional Services Firm. Mm-hmm. Because an agency owner friend of mine said they read it, and as a result, they decided not to sell their firm.
Yeah. So a reverse advertisement, right? Yeah.
But he really appreciated the honest advice. So could you talk a little bit about this latest book that you've read, that you've written?
Yeah. Because the odds of somebody selling a firm are fairly low. The odds of selling a firm for a lot of money are even lower. But there's this weird thing that happens in that to sell a firm and have a successful exit means you have to build a certain kind of firm. And building that same kind of firm is exactly what makes you not really want to sell it. It's like the same, there's an overlap between what a buyer wants and what keeps you happy running the firm. And so the book is just about both of those things, really. And I don't want people to sell it unless I want them to run the firm as if they must sell it, which is an interesting way to think about it. Blair talks about how, my podcast partner, you should run a firm as if you can never sell it, which forces you to fix the things that aren't working well. I like that concept, but I want to flip it around, and I want to say you run the firm as if you must sell it. That forces you to put things in place. And so the book is all about how to make a firm fun to run, great to sell. And this is the biggest transaction people have in their lives. Like, many of us buy a house, 1 or 2 or 3 during our lifetimes. Hardly anybody sells a business. And so this is their biggest transaction, and they don't know much about it. So the book is written as sort of a primer to help them understand all that. Yeah.
And it makes sense that you're advising firms to sell or to buy, perhaps.
Right, both.
Because you help them with every aspect of running the agency business, don't you?
Yeah. And it was a natural outgrowth of the consulting work we've done for years, where you have a client who says, hey, I know you don't, this was 30-some years ago, I know you don't do M&A work, but can you help me think through this? Which sort of forced us into doing M&A and being good at it. 180 deals over the last 30-some years. So it is natural, right? And this industry, which you know, is very weird. It's very strange, right? So you kind of have to understand it. You have to, especially if you're on the buy side, to know which firms are worth purchasing and how much to pay for them and so on. So, yeah.
And recently, would you say what kind of, we're recording this in May 2025. At the moment, what is the M&A market like? I mean, do you have a lot of people looking to purchase another firm, or do you have a lot of people thinking about buying?
Both.
Selling.
Yeah. I never would have expected that, because the economy is a little bit up in the air. It's uncertain. There's some chaos, right? Largely driven by what's happening in the U.S., I think. And so you would think that wouldn't create a very stable environment for either buying or selling. I mean, you could see, okay, now I want to sell, but are there people that are going to pay me what the firm's worth? You could see that happening, emerging from this environment. But the other is, too, we're actually busier on the buy side than the sell side. So there's a lot of firms that are wanting to buy good firms. So we work on both. We do buy side and sell side searches. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. So would you advise an agency owner of any size firm at any stage in their agency's kind of development and kind of evolution that this book will have something for them?
It would probably, it could apply to any point in their, chronologically in their development, but it probably wouldn't be all that relevant for publicly traded or holding company firms. So it's mainly privately held, in the $1 to $50 million range. So up in there, yeah. And there's a lot of those firms.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears for a moment and talk about account managers, because obviously this is the core audience that are watching this.
So you just started smiling, so you're like, thank God I don't have to talk about M&A anymore. Let's talk about interesting stuff.
Well, it's something I know something about. But also, I wanted to tell you, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I listened to one of the Two Bobs episodes.
Okay.
And you were describing account managers in such detail and such an insight into their kind of behaviors, abilities, skills, traits. And actually, I went a little bit red because I thought, my God, how does he know this? And I got a little bit embarrassed. The reason was because you said something which was they tried to sort of take over a bit.
Right.
So I just wondered if
Is that you?
Would you mind, just for the audience listening, just give us your kind of overview of what those skills are, and the kinds of characteristics that the account manager has.
Yeah, and I feel very passionate about it because there's a couple reasons. One is that nobody goes to school to be an account manager. It's, in some ways, it's a failed and then discovered trait. So somebody goes to school for something, whatever it is, and as that person is doing the work that flows from that educational background, they discover, or somebody else discovers, that they're really good at account management, and so it alters their path. And there are a lot of business owners who appreciate great account management, but there's a lot of them don't. In fact, even people in the industry just say, oh, they're sort of like this unnecessary layer between the client and the agency. We don't know what they do. They make promises that then we have to fulfill. They raise our rates because now we have to account for their time. It's like, no, you really don't understand. Like, I think it's the hardest position at a firm. So that's what has driven me to really want to study that. It's the hardest position because they have to fight for the client's perspective, but the client's not paying them. They're on the payroll of the agency, and so it's just odd how they balance that out. But they're amazing people, the ones that do it well, and they're amazing because they can, like a project manager just sends you to hell, but an account manager sends you to hell and helps you enjoy the trip. It's like, and that's a skill, right? They can manage conflict. They can drag the client across the finish line to get something done that needs to be done. They can build consensus on the client side. The most important thing that they do, in my opinion, is they help grow accounts. If your account person isn't good at growing accounts, then they are not a good account person, or they just haven't had the right training yet. But so when you think, like, forget about all the other things, if your account people are simply just taking orders and maintaining an account, then your firm is not thriving like it could. And so I'm a huge believer in that role. I believe in project managers too, and I felt like, why do we think project managers are even less important than account managers, and that it's some sort of a stepping stone to an account manager role? No. Yeah. So I'm a big, like, there are half a dozen things I want people to know me for after I leave this field. One of them is I want to be known as a person that raised the level of those two roles.
And you are doing that really well.
Yeah. Well, we do an event together that's specifically for that, and it's our second biggest event.
Yeah. Which we're going to talk about a little bit later on, because you're right. It's always amazing to get everyone in the room, the account managers and project managers together. So why do you think that they are undervalued, the account manager? You know, you just said about that some people think that they just pass a message from the client to the team. They add unnecessary expense. Where that the magic, you've mentioned growing accounts is, and I 100% agree with you, because that's exactly what I help them do. But what other traits do they bring to the client relationship and to the agency that is really under-recognized?
I think maybe their most valuable trait is their ability to listen and read the room really well, and pick up the signals from the things that are not said in a client meeting. But back to your question about why is it undervalued, I think partly it's because there isn't a career option for it. And so nobody grows up saying, Mommy, I want to be an account manager. They just don't, because it's not a major in college. The other reason is because you can take somebody's innate skills and make them a much better account manager, but it requires that they have certain capabilities already. And about 40% of people have those core capabilities that need to be trained, and the other 60% don't. And so I think there's just subconsciously, I think people think it's sort of accidental and you either have it or you don't. And they don't And also, well, there's a flip side of this too, in that account managers have been responsible for taking us off the path many times. And so there's bad account managers deservedly have a bad reputation in this space. They make promises that they shouldn't make. They make shit up instead of real research and strategic guidance. And so in some parts, the account management world is responsible for how we think about them in some cases. Yeah.
That's so true. I've seen good and bad. You talk about being strategic.
Mm-hmm.
In firms where there is a strategy role that's separate from the account manager role,
mm-hmm.
How have you seen that shift and sort of that dynamic
mm-hmm.
play out in
mm-hmm.
most agencies?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the account manager is trying to be more strategic and the strategist is saying, well, this is my role.
Right.
How do you see that separation?
Mm-hmm. I don't see any functional separation in the sense that to me, there's no innate reason why a great account manager can't also be a fantastic strategist. The problem is that clients, well, let me back up and say, the level of accessibility that an account manager has to have to lead an account works against them because that account manager becomes so familiar to the client that they don't listen to them as a strategist. Sometimes you have to bounce in and out of a relationship to be listened to. It's really weird. Like a principal of a firm who used to be the primary account manager, and then the firm grew, so we need professional account managers. This principal can then bounce into that client relationship and say something that the account manager has been saying all along, but it's listened to differently because this is some expert who's coming in from the outside. So there's no reason an account manager can't be very, very strategic. It's just the way they're perceived by the client because they're so accessible makes it sort of an issue. There's a lot of history here, actually. The account planning was founded here in this nation many years ago, like 70 years ago or so. And it arose from the fact that clients weren't listening well enough to the account managers. And so we needed an external force to drive the account forward. That was one of the reasons account planning was founded in the UK. And so there was this separation, and all of a sudden it became clear what the account manager did, what an account planner, a strategist did. The roles are really critical, and I want the account managers who are listening to this to hear again, there's no reason an account manager can't be the most strategic person in the firm. It's just how the client is prepared to listen to that sometimes.
Let's talk about context of conversations. We know that account managers are tasked with growing existing accounts. Mm-hmm. And one of my observations is the context in which they're expected to have sales conversations mm-hmm. are often what I call downstream, i.e. they are status meetings, weekly project updates. And the client's not necessarily expecting to have a conversation about their goals, their challenges, and mm-hmm. something that would enable the account manager to say, hey, we've got another solution for that.
Right.
So this leads me on to project managers, because project managers and account managers often in an agency work together. Mm-hmm. Project managers are often managing the relationship in that downstream environment with status meetings, weekly reports. Mm-hmm. Do you think that account managers can be viewed more strategically if they are the ones that come in less regularly during upstream forums, contexts like quarterly strategy sessions or monthly reporting meetings? Do you think that they would be taken more seriously by the client strategically if they only appeared in upstream contexts and the project manager appeared more regularly in downstream?
Yes, they would, but I don't think that's the right solution. But I do think that's absolutely true. They would be viewed, they would be thought of more highly if they weren't in every one of the project management meetings. But I am terrified of turning a client over to project managers because project managers come to those meetings with a certain mentality. They hate to disappoint clients. They love to go home at night having checked all the boxes, met all of the responsibilities, fulfilled all the promises that they made. So when they're in a client conversation, their idea of growth is, oh my God, this is adding more boxes on this thing that will have to be checked off. It's more opportunity for me to fail. So I think it's correct. The account manager would be viewed more highly if they were less involved, but I don't think that's the solution, because you don't want a pushy, obviously commission-driven account person being the point person on an account, but the client ought to want to grow, and the account manager ought to believe that the agency can help the client grow. So it seems like it's almost malpractice not to tell the client what we can do for them beyond what we've already agreed to do to help them grow. Project managers don't think that way. So yes, but no. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. And sorry for the long question as well. But this is really useful. And I suppose for those agency owners that are listening to this, perhaps they don't separate their account managers from their project managers.
Many agencies don't.
Many agencies don't.
Right.
So let's back up a little bit and just explain, why would an agency separate the account manager role from the project manager role?
Right. Well, I think there'd be several reasons. One is that they recognize that the innate skills are different. So there's about 15 different personality subtypes, and only one or two of those can actually effectively pull off both roles. So the rest of us are going to tend towards one or the other, right? So that's one reason to do it, is because there's this innate recognition that the roles are different. Another reason is because they have not built, and I think this is a bigger reason, a more important reason, is they have not built this healthy tension in the firm between the account manager and the project manager. And the account manager's role is to grow the account. That is the primary role of an account manager. The primary role, it's a two-part thing, for the project manager is to protect the work-life balance of the team and to protect profitability. And sometimes account managers are so driven to win, to grow the account, that they care more about the top line than the bottom line. And so they have to have the pressure from the project managers. They have to be afraid of the project managers. And if that role is concentrated in one person, there's nobody to be afraid of. So that's another reason why it needs to be separated. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
For an agency owner listening to this also, at what point in their growth should they start to think about separating the two? Because I'm sure particularly smaller firms have this hybrid account manager. They may be called project manager, but essentially it's just one person doing both functions.
Yeah. About 7, 8, 9 people is when there would be enough of those two functions separately to keep two people busy. Yeah.
And if an agency owner is thinking, well, maybe I'm at 25, 30 people, but I like the idea and I can see why it would make sense to separate the two roles. How would you advise them to go about that change?
Well, I think it needs to happen very slowly and almost privately, because there's this social contract. You hire somebody to do a job, and then if you decide to change the job description, well, that's not necessarily fair to the person, right? So it's usually the way to do it is to say, okay, here I have this person. Well, here's the thing. It's like account management and project management happens regardless of whether anybody has a title. It's happening regardless. So if nobody has the title, then you're not taking it seriously. Okay, so but let's say that it's a combined role at this 20-person hypothetical agency. Those individuals doing it, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 people at a firm that size doing it. They're each going to tend to be better at account management or project management. So you would just pay attention to that and slowly move people around. I found it takes 1.5 years sometimes to make those changes. I don't think doing it much quicker than that can be unfair to people.
And would you suggest that there's some kind of, from the agency owner's perspective, asking the team, what would you prefer? I mean, there's one about looking and observing their natural behaviors.
Right.
Like you said, if they have a natural propensity to grow an account and to be more like that leaning, they might decide that that's the right role. But would you ask people, say, this is the change that we're going to be making, you can decide what you'd like to opt for?
Yeah. Well, here's the big problem with that is that in many firms, account managers are more revered than project managers, especially in firms where project management is a stepping stone to account management. So if you ask people what they want to be in a firm like that, they're all going to say account managers, even if they aren't good at it, because that's where they make more money. So that kind of question is only safe to ask if those roles are on equal footing. Otherwise, you'll get skewed answers.
Yeah. As it relates to compensation, I've got my own personal observations of where incentives work well and where they don't for account managers. But what are your general principles when you're advising an owner of a firm about compensating account managers?
Yeah. I don't feel super strongly about this. I think there's room for lots of different perspectives, but I'm driven in part by the fact that over and over and over again, clients prefer to not work with people who are on incentives. And so, because they feel like they're never sure if the recommendations are really in the client's best interest or in the person who's going to make a commission's best interest. So that's the sort of the blanket over all of this in my mind. I also feel like the best account managers, by definition, grow accounts, even if the incentives aren't there directly tied to it. Now, if you could come up with some incentive system that doesn't directly tie to what they directly sell, I could see maybe some of that working. But in general, I'm not a big believer in incentives for account managers. I also don't think it's all that great for salespeople, just honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't expect you to say that.
Now, I would allow for it, but not because it drives behavior, but because salespeople never want an artificial cap on what they can make. I think the absence of incentives for salespeople hurts, not the presence. It's not the presence that helps, it's the absence that hurts. So you want to have it there because they don't ever want to have a cap. And I'm fine with maybe 20%, 30% of their compensation being incentives, but I'm not a believer in a heavy incentive package for salespeople. And my preference is no incentives for account people that are direct. I mean, I think you should recognize great work, but not some formula that comes out of a spreadsheet. Yeah.
And it can get quite complicated and sort of time heavy, can't it? Because administratively, so there's a few agencies that I know that will incentivize an account manager to grow an account. But there's all sorts of kind of calculations you have to do, and it's quite time consuming as well.
And how do you know, like, some of it is just accidental, and some of it is maybe a creative director who sees an opportunity and suggests it, and it's like, why should the account manager? Yeah. So it gets a little messy. Yeah.
I agree. And the resentment can build, can't it? If everyone knows that the account manager is getting more money, but I'm not.
Right.
We're talking about sales. The really important thing for account managers is that they have a great handover from the sales team.
Right.
Whether the sales team is the agency owner, whether they have a dedicated business development manager. But to set the account manager up for success at that point, do you have any kind of sort of words of wisdom, words of advice for how that handover should happen?
Yeah, I have words of advice. What are the words of wisdom? I'll have to let you decide. But I think I'm a big believer, and I think I'm the only person that really believes this, but I'm a big believer in transferring the relationship from the salesperson to the account person as soon as it looks like this new entity might be a qualified client. So as early as possible, transfer that. And there are 3 very specific reasons for it. One is that I don't want the account person to inherit promises that a salesperson made. They can resent them. Like, you promised that, now I'm on the hook to deliver that for that amount of money. That's not fair, right? That's the first reason. The second reason is that I want the salesperson to never have an excuse to ignore new business. So if they get sucked into serving this account, and that's what happens, the first salesperson you hire inevitably becomes the account person for all the work they close, and then all their sales activity closes because now they're busy serving accounts. Okay, so I want them to kill something, drag it back to the cave, drop it off, and then go hunt something else. Okay, and the third reason is because I don't want the prospect to bond with the sales manager and feel like now this is a bait and switch. It's like, wait a second, I was looking forward to working with this person and now they're going to disappear? No, let them bond with the account person, right? Now, you could hear in somebody's mind a principal hearing this and saying, oh, well, we wouldn't close as much work. Well, then you don't have good account people. Yeah. Then if your account people can't close new business, then they need training, or they might not even be capable of doing it. Yeah.
What would their role specifically be during that closing meeting? Like, if you could paint a picture of that scenario, and because there's probably account managers thinking, well, I don't think I've ever been into a new business meeting that's, is closing. What would I do?
Yeah. Well, in order to do that job, the salesperson needs to very respectfully transfer the power to that account person and say, I'd love to talk about the specifics, but this person, Anne, she knows everything about it. Like, so there has to be a good setup there, right? But they would, in that meeting, you would ask all kinds of, it's not about talking, it's about asking questions. What is it you're trying to accomplish? And what are the challenges that you have? And what are the timelines, and what's your budget like, and so on. So, and gathering enough information so that the account person can then go back and develop a written proposal in consultation with the client until they sign off on it. So it's exactly what the salesperson would do. It's just being done by somebody else.
And like you said, set them up for success. Shine the light on them.
Right.
Don't take the limelight yourself. Make them look important, because otherwise, the client will not think that they're significant.
And there's little things that make that happen too. It's especially weird if you have a male salesperson and a female account person. Like, you would never have the female account person taking notes in a meeting.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, our minds just fall into some of those old traps. And so you have to pay attention to how loaded certain social contexts are for people too. Yeah.
With sales, a lot of account managers are reluctant to think that they are in the sales business.
Right.
But obviously, if they are looking to add more value to clients, to suggest more solutions, to talk to them about other services that they could benefit from, that is selling.
Yeah.
So do you have any sort of words that, for someone listening that perhaps just doesn't associate themselves with selling, how to think about it differently? Yeah.
It's such a great question. I think when people feel that way, I think what they're doing is they are reflecting on their own personal bad sales experiences, and they don't want to be that person. So they don't have good role models for selling, and they don't have good frameworks for it. I do a podcast called Two Bobs with Blair Enns, and he's a sales training person. And he makes lots of really interesting statements about how to reframe this in your head. Like, selling is about helping. It's not about convincing anybody. And so if you have an account manager who doesn't understand that, they don't want to be the person responsible for talking somebody into something. But that's not what sales is. Sales is figuring out if we are the right fit to help you do this, or should you even do this, right? And it's all driven by honesty. And that should be something that an account manager embraces, is being honest with the client, right? Now, if the account manager isn't proud of the place they work, well, sometimes that's hard, right? Because they may say to themselves under their breath, you really need this. I'm not sure I want to sell this to you. I kind of know the people that do that, right? That's a different problem, though. Yeah.
And like you said before, I think sometimes even account managers can think, well, I'm busy enough as it is. We're understaffed. Why would I suggest more stuff to the client when I think it's going to come back on my shoulders as well?
Right. Yeah.
So what advice would you give for agency owners managing account managers? We've talked about incentives. Are there any kind of KPIs or things that they should be keeping them accountable to?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very hard to be a great account manager if you are responsible for too many accounts. I don't know what the number. I don't think this is a scientific answer, but I really don't like scenarios where you have more than 5 accounts. And sometimes you may just have one if it's a big one. But also, your expectations of the account manager need to match the quality of the prospect as well. So if you're handing lousy clients to an account manager, your expectations need to be tempered as well. If they're not qualified, if they don't have the money to spend, right? So it all depends on whether they're given a growable account. You can't expect them to grow an account that isn't grow worthy, so to speak. So that's part of it. I think, how many clients you have. I also think that if you are making a distinction between contractors and full-time employees, that your full-time employees need to be where you plug your account managers in. I would be pretty reticent to use contractors for account management work. They need to be very closely associated with the core. They need to be, if this person is part-time, they really need to be available. If they're just working half-time, they need to be available half-time for all 5 days a week. You can't have account managers who are inaccessible for 2 days every week, right? Except for the weekends, obviously, or holidays. So those are the places I would start.
With account growth, it requires some thinking time sometimes, some preparation time.
Right.
And this extra time that an account management team needs to kind of think more strategically about where we could be taking the client, where else we could be helping the client, requires internal time. What are your thoughts on the way the market is going at the moment when it comes to pricing by the hour, and the fact that often, because we are pricing by the hour, and I'm merging two themes here and trying to come up with a decent question. We're charging by the hour, and we're looking at billability and, making sure everyone's utilization reports. But the market's changing. So partly agency owners are looking at productizing services so that there's more profit built into their products. AI is providing us with lots that we can utilize it for quicker. So the process of working in an agency is beginning to... I'm just interested in this concept of time in an agency and how we're spending that time. So I suppose there's 2 parts to my question. Let's start with pricing. Maybe it's cleaner. Are you seeing any shift in how agencies are starting to price their services?
I'm actually not. I'm seeing a shift in how they want to, but not in how they're actually doing it. I think people are very sensitive, more sensitive than they've ever been, at how clients are undervaluing the work that they're doing for them. And that is driving them to understand and maybe experiment with value pricing. But it's not really changing much, just honestly. And I feel like hourly pricing is a great floor. It's a terrible ceiling. It's like but the problem is that so many agencies are underperforming financially that if they could just get paid for all the time they're spending, they would make so much more money. So let's worry about that first. And then once we're getting paid for all of our time, how do we climb to the next step? That's where we would productize. That's where we would use value pricing and so on. But let's not put the cart before the horse here. It's like you're not even getting paid for all the time you're spending. So quit worrying about value pricing. Just worry about getting paid for all your time.
Yeah. Do you think that a lot of agency owners are preoccupied with thinking, gosh, I'm learning this AI stuff at the same time as my clients learning the AI stuff? The clients are realizing, wow, we can get this done so much quicker. And then they see the cost estimate from an agency and think, hang on a minute, do they really need this many hours? I mean, this is an impression, but what you're saying is in reality, it's not something that's changing. But do you anticipate that things will change?
Yes, I do. I don't know exactly how they'll change, but long term, I'm not worried. AI is going to impact the software development field more than it will the advertising field. I think it will automate a lot of what we do, but we'll be leading that charge, and it doesn't mean the work will be taken away. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be more competition between agencies, not between an agency and a client. So certain agencies that use AI better will win more, but the competition won't be between the agency and the client. It'll be between agencies. And I don't really know where all this will end up, but I'm old enough to have been through many of these things where something that we used to make a lot of money from was taken away from us, and now we have to find other ways to make money. So if you're worried that this soulless, humorless AI tool is going to take your job, well, you're not very good at your job. It's just like, I understand the panic, and I don't think any of us really knows what's going to happen, but geez, to me, this is just like it's like the merry-go-round spinning up, and the weakest kids are going to get thrown off. Just don't be one of the weakest kids.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because there's a lot of fear-mongering, myself included, because like you say, no one really knows where this is going to go.
Yeah.
And probably as marketing firms, we are at the forefront of Gen AI and all of these changes. I mean, there seems to be a tool coming out every second for different aspects of what we do. So, and I saw a lovely post that you put onto LinkedIn about this. So maybe can you talk a little bit more about this? Because I think it's important. I think people probably look to yourself as an agency advisor to think, well, where is the market going? What should I worry about?
Yeah. Well, I think it's wrong to be crazy worried. I think it's wrong to ignore it. Like, we have to, somewhere in the middle, right? We have to understand it. Like, as it would impact me, I realize that SEO is going to be completely different. And so, like, I find myself going to some of these AI search engines and saying, and writing a query about that I think should lead to something that I've written, to see if it does. Do these AI engines even know about me? And they do. So I think, oh, okay, well, I feel a little bit better. But I have to think differently now. I have to write not just for the audience. I have to write for the AI engine so that the world will know I'm still here when they don't already know about it. So I think there's very valid issues that we have to think about, but I don't think you do stupid things when you're panicked, and I don't think we ought to panic. I just think we ought to pay careful attention to it and be ready to adapt. Yeah, but I don't know what all that means yet. I'm just reading, paying attention. Like right now, instead of calling you up, I could go to Perplexity and say, how would Jenny Plant answer this question? And Perplexity will probably tell me something that's 90% accurate. Why would I need, like, those are real questions, right? Yeah, so I think we need to keep asking those questions, but I think it's counterproductive to panic about it.
From an account manager's point of view, obviously one of their superpowers is the relationship building, the kind of taking care of the client, being attuned, like you said, reading the room and seeing if the energy drops and if they're getting bored. Do you think that that's going to come at a premium in the future, given that AI is being used for everything else, this kind of person-to-person relationship?
You would hope, right? But, there's also Meta that's creating AI girlfriends for lonely teenage boys. So it's like, I'm sure a lot of good will come from that. Yeah. They'll make them very dateable. I would think so. You would you never know how good AI is going to get. But at the moment, it doesn't get nuance. It doesn't get humor. It doesn't get sarcasm. It's always a year out of date. It's often wrong. So, I can kick AI's ass right now. But will that always be the case? I don't know. Yeah.
I've just released an AI for account managers course, actually. It gave me an opportunity to use all of the different tools for the specific training that I'm helping agencies with. And it's been brilliant, actually.
What's your perspective on the role that AI is going to play?
I think account managers need to start using it and using it quickly.
Right.
Because I think that there are 4 levels of value for a client, which is service delivery, experience, ROI and outcomes, and then future value. And each of those levels, you can utilize AI to help you provide that value up the ladder. So I've provided lots of use cases for each level and how account managers can use it. So, for example, if you're predicting how much a client is able to spend with you, we used to, in the old days when I first started in advertising, look through clippings, newspaper clippings of what's going on in the client's business. Now that process can be shortened, so we can find out if the client has a new pipeline of products and services coming through, and very quickly enable us to kind of prepare for a conversation with the client, to say, well, hey, we know that you're launching, we've done your website, we know we're going to have an update in that website. So I think there's lots of tools that can be used right now to help an account manager prepare for client conversations, to get them ahead of the game.
I'd like to see account management lead the agency's migration into AI, because they are on the front lines of the client. And so they're also exposed to clients who think, maybe erroneously or maybe not, that the use of AI should lower the fees and so on. So right now, AI development is being driven by principals and strategists at the agency. And I think AI ought to be driving, or account management ought to be driving the AI train at agencies.
I agree with you, because you had Sharon Torek from Torek Law at your event.
Right.
And I've subsequently spoken to Sharon. And one of the key things that agencies need to have in place is principles for using AI in our agency and with our client. So there's things, and that could be initiated by the account manager. And still, account managers are not having that conversation. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
They should be initiating that conversation, both internally and with the client. Plus with freelancers, how are we going to mandate that freelancers are using AI tools?
Yeah, right.
Because of the copyright and
right,
trademark issues, etc.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about events. You host an event every year, Mind Your Own Business, which is huge. But we also have an event for account managers and project managers. So this year, it's in September.
Right.
So can you talk to me a bit about why people come to the event, what they get out of the event, what have been the last few years of the feedback on the event?
Well, account managers and project managers come to it. And anytime you have, especially, well, both actually, they're just different and they're fun in different ways, I guess. All together, it's a lot of fun. It's very different than if you had a bunch of designers in a room, right? It's in Atlanta. It's in a brewery, which makes it really fun. And Atlanta's very easy to get to. And I've done an event like this for decades with you just recently, and it's been fantastic. It's been our biggest ones have been the ones we've done with you. You help program it now, which is great, and you talk at the event like 3 times as much as I do, so I'm sort of just in the audience anymore. But it's just great because I am such a big believer in the role that account managers need to have, and it's not accidental. They need training, which is what you do for a living. They need to understand how to lead clients. They need to understand how to listen, how to deal with conflict, how to close, how to hand things off with project managers and so on. So there's you, me, and then we usually have one other person speaking, a different person at each one too. So yeah, looking forward to it.
I can't wait as well. And as we've been talking about AI, there's going to be lots of tools that I'm going to introduce, lots of principles, lots of strategies to help account managers with their role. Mm-hmm. And we're also going to have Brett Harned as well, who has written a book about digital project management.
Right.
And can you tell us a bit about Brett?
Yeah, Brett's widely known, especially in the digital space. And you know, we say digital, it's like, what isn't digital? So it's like everything now. And I've known of Brett for many years and asked if he would come speak. And you and he are sort of coordinating some of these topics together. I'm very glad to have him here too. So he just recently agreed to do it. So it should be good.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think we're hopefully going to answer a lot of the questions that agency owners have about account managers and project managers. How do they work together? How are they different?
Right. What
tools can they use in their workflows? How do they grow an account? Mm-hmm. And for account managers that are a bit worried about the sales part, this is something that they are going to learn. Doesn't have to feel salesy. It's going to feel very, very helpful.
And people need to come from the UK too. It's fun. Like we in the US, we're fun. We're really fun people.
Yeah, and I can definitely say that you are, because no, we have a lot of fun, David, and I can't wait. It's always the highlight of my year, and I'm going to do everything I can to get as many people there this time as I possibly can. So, David, just to wrap things up. If there's an agency owner that's listening to this particularly, and they are perhaps a little bit fearful about the future, about all of these changes, you've talked about the economy, you've talked about AI, can you leave them with some thoughts for the next kind of 3 to 5 years of their agency business? Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid of change, for sure. Always be thinking of that. Try to stay away from overreactions. Things are never as good. They're never as bad as people think. Take your time to make decisions, but not too much time. And I'm just encouraging principals in this chaos where it's easy to just wait until the clarity comes, until the fog lifts. That's waiting too long. Your job in leading an agency is to make decisions. Your job is not to always be right. Your job is to always make decisions. And so keep making them. And whenever you make a bad decision, just recognize it and correct it and keep moving on. It's like this is one of those times. It happens every 5 or 6 years, it seems like, but this is one of those times when we need lots of active leadership. And principals need to do that. And account managers are natural-born leaders as well, so they can contribute to that. Yeah.
David, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. I hope you enjoyed my chat with David, and if this conversation has sparked some ideas for how you can grow your client relationship and lead more confidently and future-proof your role, then imagine what could happen if you gave yourself 2 days completely focused on it. Why not join us in Atlanta this 23rd and 24th of September 2025 for the AM/PM conference, the only event created specifically for agency account managers and project managers. And this isn't just another conference, it's where you'll surround yourself with people who get it. Fellow account managers and project managers facing the same pressures, the same expectations that you are. You're going to learn practical strategies to retain and grow your client accounts, manage tricky situations, and improve delivery without burning out. You're also going to discover exactly how other agencies are using AI to work smarter, automate the boring stuff, and deliver faster, better outcomes. Now, you're going to leave this conference with fresh tools, fresh thinking, frameworks, and real-world examples that you can put into practice the very next day. I'm going to be there, David will be there, and we're also joined by Brett Harnard, who is founder of the Digital PM Summit and author of Project Management for Humans. So if you're serious about growing your career, your role, and elevating yourself in your position, this is where it happens. So visit David's website, which is punctuation.com, for all the details of the conference and grab your spot now. And I really hope that I'll see you this September in Atlanta for the conference. And I look forward to speaking to you on the next episode.